brought in Jeff Green and Landry Shamet. All right, marinate on that for a second. That was a lot there. Stephen A., based on recent moves, where do you think Harden should want to play?
Brooklyn. First of all, Boogie Cousins, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for him only from the standpoint that he's back in the league. He's going to be healthy. We know this is a guy that averaged 28 a game when he was in Sacramento and then New Orleans. We know what he can do when healthy. Last couple of seasons, he's had a string of bad luck, but he can play. I don't know if Houston's the ideal matchup, particularly with James Harden there, considering their style of play. I don't think Boogie fits into that personally. That's just me. But having said all of that, it doesn't matter. If you're James Harden, you need to want to go to Brooklyn for one reason above all else. Your shot at the title. It ain't in Houston. You got no shot. They're not beating the Lakers. They're not beating the Clippers. They probably wouldn't beat Denver or Dallas. That's the way I look at it. Okay? And even though Philadelphia would be a possibility and an option, they're still relatively young at certain positions. You're James Harden. I think with what the Lakers have put together in terms of Anthony Davis expected to re-sign, LeBron still being there, Morris still there, then you acquired Marc Gasol and Montrezl Harrell, okay, and Schrader. The bottom line is when you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, they are better than they were when they won the championship last month. It's just that simple. And when you look at it from that perspective, what's your best shot to go after them? To assemble a big three, a Kyrie, KD with James Harden, because you're certainly not going to beat them in the interior. You got to bring them outside and destroy them in that fashion, pushing the ball up the court and shooting perimeter shots. That's your only shot to beat this Los Angeles Lakers squad, and there's only one team that could do it. That would be Brooklyn if James Harden were there. Not to mention the fact that, let's call this what it is, Max. Kevin Durant, you know how I feel about him. You know what I think about him. Best in the world. I think he's that lethal. Probably the greatest offensive scorer we've ever seen in our lifetime. Let me be very, very clear with what I'm about to say. He's on the clock. Kevin Durant is on the clock. You were injured last year. We all know that. I believe you'll average 27 in your sleep. We know that. We know what KD can do. But LeBron has reemerged. He actually, instead of being called King James, he is King James because he's the one wearing the crown as we speak. And we all know that before KD went to Golden State, LeBron went to Miami. And LeBron has preceded KD in a lot of moves. And KD wanted to sit up there and find his own juggernaut, got himself back-to-back chips, would have had his own three-peat had he not gotten injured, because Kawhi Leonard and Toronto wouldn't have had a snowball's chance in hell of beating Golden State. But with all of that said, now that Kevin Durant sat out last season, you talking about coming back. You in Brooklyn, New York. This is the Mecca, New York. Okay? I don't give a damn if it's Brooklyn as opposed to Manhattan. It's one of the 5 boroughs. It's New York, baby. Okay? We expect stuff up in here. And not to say that the Knicks have given us any reason to, because we know better. I'm just talking about that microscopic eye that descends down upon you, monitoring everything you do and what it takes. If you're Kevin Durant with Kyrie and you don't have any kind of championship at least contention to show for it, you got a problem. And if you James Harden, you certainly need that yourself. James Harden, because of the Lakers, should be trying to get to Brooklyn now more than ever before. And Max, as an aside, I'm hearing nobody's really calling Houston right now about James Harden. Nothing is going on. The Houston Rockets are expecting James Harden to remain in Houston as of this moment. It could change in a matter of hours. You know how this goes. But they're expecting him to stay in Houston because nobody is calling them for James Harden as we speak. Brooklyn needs to change. They need to get on the phone with Houston.
I guess it's a return engagement. That was a very short first tenure, though. Let's bring in Brian Windhorst on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. What do you make of this move, this Marc Gasol move by the Lakers, Brian?
Well, Rob Pelinka, their general manager, came out last week before all this and said, I don't want to be complacent with this roster. I don't want to just bring it back. And not only has he dramatically changed the makeup of the supporting players, but he's going to change their style of play. They were a very highly athletic defensive team last year, and Marc Gasol is one of the great defensive centers of the last decade. He's, past his prime, but still very smart defensively, but he's not the athlete that Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee were. And then, one of their big signing was Montrezl Harrell, bringing the sixth man of the year over from down the hall. And Montrezl Harrell is a great offensive center, but not a strong defensive center. So I think you look at the Lakers, they have acquired the guys who finished first and second. Dennis Schroeder was second in six-man, known for their offense, not as much for their defense. So when you look at the Lakers, the changes, they have infused their offense. There will be so much more support for Anthony Davis and LeBron James. But the way they play defensively especially is going to go a little bit of a shift this season.
Wendy, take me out to the East for a little bit with Milwaukee. Obviously, getting Bogdanović was something that they thought was going to happen. Now that's not happening. How does this alter the decision for Giannis?
Jay, everything that happened in the draft last week, everything that happened over free agency over the last 3 days, it really is all behind the most important thing in this offseason. And that is, does Giannis sign the extension? That is the defining moment of what will be this NBA offseason. And in some ways, maybe even this season. This is, in my view, the biggest transactional decision since Kevin Durant going to the Thunder, even more than LeBron going to the Lakers or Anthony Davis going to the Lakers, because so many teams are going to drastically shift depending on what Giannis decides to do. If you look at the teams out there and the moves that have been made over the last few days, there are clearly teams hedging. The Miami Heat signed 4 players, all of them to one-year contracts. They lost a couple of role players, Jay Crowder and Derek Jones, because those guys didn't want to take one-year deals. The Dallas Mavericks made a couple of trades to offload long-term salary to leave themselves a Giannis slot open, and there's other teams that are maneuverable too, such as the Knicks and Raptors, who've been cautious as well. And I think there's 2 star players waiting to sign to see what Giannis does. That's Anthony Davis. He's coming back to the Lakers, but he may change the alteration of his contract, the way it's structured, to give the Lakers a window, if not for Giannis, but for somebody in a 1+1, because that's what LeBron is now on. And Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo signs a max contract that the Heat will not have the room, but if he waits a year, they will. So it's all Giannis. So now the question becomes, where's his head at? Well, the Bucks made a major move last week when they traded for Drew Holiday, and giving up 3 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps. They're not doing that unless they are confident. And I can tell you from talking to people there, they are confident. But it's not done yet. And, nobody knows how Giannis feels about the near miss on Bogdanović, a player, by the way, he really wanted to play with. And then the other moves that the Bucks made in substitute, DJ Augustine, Torrey Craig, Bobby Portis. Nobody knows how Giannis feels except for Giannis. And we're all waiting on that answer.
Wendy, let's go one layer deeper with the Miami Heat. So Alex Serratas, who is the agent for both Giannis and Bam Adebayo, how would you advise the Miami Heat to play this one out? Obviously, Giannis and Bam are close as well. You don't want to have a disgruntled person that doesn't feel like he gets his money. Obviously, when Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell, all these guys are signing pretty major extensions.
Jay, this is such an incredible, sensitive moment. I will say that it's interesting that all of the other stars from the 2017 draft class, all the guys who are ready for their payday, De'Aaron Fox, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, all those contracts are done. There's Bam waiting, same agent as Giannis. Now, I know that this is a little bit dense, but bottom line is, even though it's the exact same amount of money, if Bam signs now versus next year, it cuts the Heat's available salary cap down by $13 million. We have seen a number of players in this exact spot over the years kind of have a understanding with the team, and they will wait to sign it to help the team. That said, in an era where we see guys, have these injuries, it's very unnerving, especially for a player who hasn't signed yet. So even if Bam, or even if Giannis does extend his contract here in the next few days, that's a big decision for the Heat because there are other free agents they could go get next year, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Wendy, the Hornets went out and signed Gordon Hayward to a $120 million deal. What does that do for the Hornets?
It gets them a scoring small forward, but in my mind, they're still not one of the top 7 teams in the East. This was a strange decision on a couple of fronts. One, Gordon Hayward, could have made $34 million this year and played on a contender and basically said, I want out of here to go play for a non-contender, in my view. And that's a little bit worrisome in Boston because now that's the third player in the last 2 years, max player, who's walked out of there for nothing in return. Al Horford, Kyrie Irving, and now Gordon Hayward. And you try to start scratching your head and wonder what's going on there. Now, you can retort by saying they did get Kemba Walker, and that's where the Charlotte thing also doesn't make sense. Kemba Walker was, I don't even think, argued.